What happens when one of country music's biggest stars refuses to back down during a live television interview that spirals completely out of control? That's exactly what unfolded on a Tuesday morning at the Good Morning America studios in New York City, when Luke Bryan's routine promotional appearance turned into one of the most talked about moments in live television history. The morning began like any other, with Luke arriving to promote his new album and upcoming tour dates. Having appeared on the show many times before, he was comfortable and confident, flashing his familiar, easygoing smile as he settled into the chair across from longtime host Michael Richardson. Known for his calm, professional demeanor, Richardson was expected to keep the interview light, discussing music, touring, and family life. But what came next blindsided everyone. After the usual warm introductions and small talk, Richardson glanced at his notes and asked a question that instantly changed the atmosphere in the studio. "There have been some questions raised about the authenticity of your songwriting," he said carefully. "Specifically whether you're writing these songs yourself, or if a team of ghostwriters is doing the work." The question hit like a thunderclap. Luke's smile faltered and a flicker of disbelief crossed his face before he asked, "I'm sorry. What exactly are you asking me?" Richardson pressed forward, explaining that industry insiders claimed many of Luke's songs were written by Nashville writers while his name was added later for marketing purposes. The tension was immediate and visible. Luke's jaw tightened as he leaned forward and said, "Are you seriously questioning my integrity as a songwriter on live television?" Richardson, maintaining his professional tone, responded, "Your fans deserve to know if the songs they connect with are genuinely yours or manufactured by a songwriting factory." That was all it took to ignite a full-blown confrontation. Luke's southern drawl sharpened with anger as he fired back, insisting he'd been writing songs since he was 16, pouring his heart and soul into every lyric, whether written alone, co-written, or selected from other artists. But Richardson didn't let up. "That's not really answering the question, Luke. Are you writing these songs or not?" The room seemed to shrink as the tension mounted. Luke shook his head, his voice rising. "This is unbelievable. I came here to talk about music, not to be ambushed with baseless accusations." Cameras kept rolling as the heated exchange escalated. Then, in a move that stunned the crew, Richardson produced papers from his stack of notes and said, "We have documents showing writing sessions where you were credited despite not being present." That was the breaking point. Luke stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "Documents? What documents? Where are you getting this?" he demanded, pacing angrily. "You're attacking me on live television instead of asking my team for clarification?" Richardson replied calmly. "We reached out to your representatives multiple times. They declined to comment, which is why we're asking you directly." The color rose in Luke's face as he snapped back. "They declined because these accusations are garbage, pure garbage. And the fact that you'd ambush me like this tells me everything about what kind of journalist you are." The studio went dead silent except for the low hum of cameras still rolling. Crew members froze, the tension so thick it was almost visible. What was meant to be a friendly morning chat had turned into a fiery, unfiltered confrontation that no one, least of all Luke Bryan, would forget anytime soon. Richardson realized he had pushed one of country music's biggest stars to his breaking point, but instead of backing down, he doubled down. "Luke, I understand you're upset," he said calmly, his practiced television tone only making the singer angrier. "But these are legitimate questions your fans and the music industry are asking. We have sources within Nashville's songwriting community willing to go on record about these practices." Luke Bryan stopped pacing, turned sharply toward him, and met his gaze with eyes blazing. "Sources? You mean unnamed sources who are probably jealous of my success? People who couldn't make it in this business trying to tear down someone who did?" Richardson didn't flinch. "These aren't anonymous sources, Luke," he replied evenly, shuffling through his papers. "We have statements from established songwriters, Grammy winners, who've worked within the same system you're allegedly part of." Luke let out a bitter laugh. "Allegedly? Now I'm allegedly part of something? Do you understand what you're doing right now, Michael? You're destroying my reputation on live television based on hearsay and gossip." Richardson leaned back slightly, clearly comfortable with the confrontation. I'm doing journalism, Luke. Real journalism means asking tough questions, even when they make people uncomfortable. Tough questions? Luke snapped, his voice cracking with disbelief. This isn't journalism. This is a hit job. You invited me here under false pretenses, told my team we'd talk about the album and tour, and now you're trying to erase 20 years of hard work. The host looked down at his notes again, unfazed. Let's talk specifically about your hit song, Carolina Nights. Our investigation shows it was written entirely by a team of Nashville writers. Yet your name appears as the primary songwriter on all official credits and royalty statements. Luke's fists clenched at his sides. Carolina Nights is one of the most personal songs I've ever recorded, he shot back. It's about my grandmother's house, about summers I spent there as a kid, about the memories that made me who I am, and you're telling me I didn't write it? Richardson's response was cold and matter-of-fact. I'm telling you what our investigation revealed. We have copies of the original writing session notes, and your name doesn't appear anywhere on them. Writing session notes? Luke shouted. Do you think every song gets written in some official meeting with minutes and witnesses? Some of my best songs were written on my back porch in my truck or in hotel rooms at 3 a.m. There aren't always note-takers. But Richardson was relentless. He pulled a folder from the desk and opened it deliberately. There are witnesses to this particular song being written, he said, and none of them remember you being there. The words hit like a punch. Luke stared at him for a long, tense moment, chest heaving as he tried to keep his composure. You know what? I think I understand what's happening here, he said finally, his voice low but shaking with fury. Someone's feeding you this garbage, someone with an agenda, and you're too lazy or too biased to find the truth. The truth, Richardson countered, is exactly what we're trying to uncover. If you have evidence that you wrote these songs, we'd be happy to review it. Luke laughed harshly, disbelief written all over his face. Evidence? You want me to provide evidence that I wrote songs that came from my own heart and soul? What would satisfy you, Michael? A video of me writing every single word. Actually, Richardson said, his tone measured, that's an interesting point. In today's digital age, most songwriters document their process. Voice memos, lyric drafts, timestamps. Do you have any of that? Luke smirked bitterly. I've been writing songs since before smartphones existed. I learned to write with a guitar and a notebook, not apps and timestamps. Richardson nodded slightly, as if confirming something to himself. So you're saying you have no documentation of your songwriting process whatsoever? Luke shot back immediately. I'm saying real songwriters don't need to document inspiration to prove their authenticity to TV hosts who wouldn't recognize a real song if it bit them on the backside. The insult hit its mark. Richardson's calm veneer cracked for the first time, a flash of anger flickering across his face before he composed himself. Personal attacks won't change the facts, he said coolly. We have multiple sources confirming that several of your biggest hits were written by other people. Luke took a step closer to the host's desk, his presence suddenly imposing. Multiple sources, unnamed witnesses, mysterious documents. You know what's missing from all this, Michael? Actual proof. Real evidence. All I hear is gossip dressed up as journalism. Richardson didn't blink. We have signed affidavits, he said quietly, pulling another paper from his folder. The words seemed to hit Luke like a physical blow. He froze, staring at the papers in disbelief. Signed affidavits? From who? He demanded. Richardson cleared his throat. From 3 different songwriters who claim they wrote songs that appear on your last 2 albums under your name. The studio went completely still. Even the camera operators held their breath. Luke's face had gone pale beneath the studio lights, and for the first time since the interview began, his confidence faltered. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and eerily calm. Let me see those affidavits. The quiet authority in his tone sent a chill through the room. Richardson hesitated for a beat, then slid the papers across the desk. These are copies, of course, he said. Luke stared down at them, the weight of the moment pressing on everyone watching. as the once friendly interview dissolved into one of the most explosive live television confrontations ever broadcast. "The originals are with our legal department," Richardson said calmly. Bryan grabbed the documents from the desk and began scanning them, his eyes darting across each line. As he read, his expression shifted, first confusion, then disbelief, and finally anger. "This is Sarah Mitchell's signature," he muttered, looking up in shock. "Sarah's been one of my closest collaborators for 8 years. We've written dozens of songs together." Richardson leaned back slightly, his voice steady but sharp. "According to her statement, those weren't collaborations. She claims she brought you completed songs and you insisted on adding your name to the credits as a condition of recording them." Bryan's hands trembled as he held the papers. "That's a lie. That's an absolute lie, and Sarah knows it. We've spent hours in my studio, rewriting lyrics, rearranging verses. She's lying." "Michael, I don't understand why." Richardson leaned forward, sensing weakness. "She's not the only one. Luke, James Crawford, and Tommy Williams have all signed similar statements. They describe the same thing, the same pressure to give you writing credits you didn't earn." Bryan's voice cracked. "James and Tommy? These are people I've known for years, friends. Their families have been to my house for barbecues. Why would they lie?" Richardson shrugged. "Maybe they're not lying. Maybe they're finally telling the truth about something this industry's kept hidden for too long." Bryan looked down at the affidavits again, his mind spinning. No, there's an explanation. Someone got to them, paid them, threatened them. This doesn't make sense." "Or maybe," Richardson said quietly, "you've been living a lie for so long that you started believing it yourself." The words hit like a slap. Bryan looked up, his eyes blazing. "You think I don't know which songs I wrote? You think I don't remember staying up all night writing about my own life, my own pain?" Richardson checked his notes. "Let's talk about Memories of Summer, the song you've said was inspired by your father's death. According to these statements, that song was written 2 years before your father passed away, by Tommy Williams, about his father's death." Bryan staggered back, color draining from his face. "That's impossible. That song was written 3 days after Dad's funeral. I remember every word, every feeling. It came straight from my heart. Tommy Williams remembers writing it in his Nashville apartment in 2019, Richardson said relentlessly. "He even has recordings of the original demo dated 2 years before your father died." Bryan shook his head violently. No, this is wrong. Someone's setting me up. Someone's trying to destroy me." Richardson calmly placed his phone on the desk. "We have that demo, Luke. Would you like to hear it?" "Stop," Bryan whispered, his voice trembling. "Just stop." But Richardson pressed play. The quiet strumming of an acoustic guitar filled the studio, followed by a voice unmistakably not Bryan's, singing the same melody and lyrics to Memories of Summer. The same song Bryan had claimed came from his grief. He closed his eyes, his shoulders sagging under the weight of it. When he opened them again, something inside him had broken. "Turn it off," he said softly. Richardson let the recording play a few more seconds before stopping it. "Luke, do you have an explanation for this?" Silence. Then, hollowly, Bryan said, "I don't know what to say." "The truth would be a good start," Richardson replied. Bryan's head snapped up, fury returning. "The truth? You want the truth, Michael? You've ambushed me on live television with lies and forgeries, and you expect me to just sit here and take it?" "These aren't forgeries," Richardson said evenly. "We've had them verified." "By who?" Bryan shouted. "The same people who've wanted me to fail since the start?" "By independent handwriting experts and audio specialists," Richardson replied, unflinching. "We've done our homework." Bryan snatched the papers off the desk, waving them angrily. "This is character assassination. You found a few disgruntled ex-collaborators, paid or threatened them, and now you're trying to destroy 20 years of my career. If they're lies," Richardson said coldly, "then sue us. Take us to court. Prove us wrong. Clear your name." The challenge hung in the air like static. Bryan glared at him, chest heaving. "You know what, Michael? I don't have to prove anything to you or anyone else. My fans know who I am. They know my heart. They know my music is real." Richardson's tone sharpened. "Do they, Luke? Or do they know a carefully constructed image that your label spent millions creating?" That final jab broke whatever control Bryan had left. His face twisted with rage as he stepped toward Richardson's desk, fists clenched. A constructed image? I've been the same man since day one. I've never pretended to be anyone but myself. The room went silent. Cameras rolling, crew frozen as the world watched a legend unravel before their eyes. Richardson leaned in, his voice low but cutting. But who are you really, Luke? Are you the authentic country songwriter your fans believe in? Or just a product designed to sell records and tickets? Bryan's jaw tightened. I'm a human being, he said through gritted teeth. A father, a husband, a son who lost his dad and wrote songs to deal with the pain. And you're sitting there telling me that my grief, my memories, my emotions are fake. The host leaned back unflinching. I'm telling you that the songs you claim came from those emotions were written by other people. That's not the same thing. Bryan slammed his hand on the desk with a crack that made Richardson flinch. It's exactly the same thing. Those songs became part of me the moment I heard them, the moment I connected with them, the moment I decided to share them with my fans. But you didn't write them, Richardson replied coolly. I lived them. Bryan shot back, his voice rising. Every word, every note. I lived those songs when I performed them. That's what makes them real. Not some piece of paper with a signature on it. Richardson glanced down at his notes one last time. Luke, we also have evidence that you were contractually required to accept writing credits on certain songs as part of your recording deals. Your label has essentially been buying you songwriting credentials to maintain your image as an authentic country artist. Bryan froze, the blood draining from his face. Where did you get that information? Sources within your own label, Richardson said calmly. People who say they're tired of participating in what they call the biggest fraud in country music history. The words seemed to hollow Bryan out completely. He stared at Richardson in disbelief, then slowly sank into his chair. This is unbelievable, he murmured. This is absolutely unbelievable. Luke, Richardson pressed, sensing victory. We're giving you an opportunity here to come clean, to tell your side of the story, to expose how the system really works. Bryan looked up, exhausted. Come clean? You want me to confess to crimes I didn't commit? To validate the lies you've built around my career? I want you to tell the truth about how this industry really operates, Richardson said. About how artists like you get pressured into these arrangements. Bryan let out a bitter laugh. Oh, now I'm authentic? 5 minutes ago I was a fraud. Now suddenly I'm a victim? Which story are you trying to tell here, Michael? Richardson shifted uncomfortably. I'm trying to understand what really happened. No, you're not, Bryan said, his voice steady now, charged with defiance. You're trying to manufacture a story that'll get clicks, ratings, and headlines. You don't care about truth. You don't care about my career or my family, who has to sit at home watching this character assassination live on TV. The host tried to regain control. Luke, millions of people are watching right now. They deserve to know if their favorite country star is genuine, or if they've been deceived. Bryan stood up abruptly, his decision made. You know what those millions of people deserve, Michael? They deserve better journalism than this. They deserve reporters who investigate, not fabricate, who ask tough questions without ambushing their guests with forged documents and lies. These documents aren't forged, Richardson protested, but Bryan wasn't listening anymore. He unhooked his wireless mic from his shirt, his movements deliberate. I've spent my entire career trying to connect with people through music, he said, his voice trembling but firm. Trying to share real emotions and real experiences, whether I wrote every word or not. Every song I've ever recorded has been authentic to who I am and what I've lived. Richardson realized the interview was slipping away from him. Luke, please sit back down. Let's work through this together. Work through this? Bryan threw the microphone down onto the desk with a sharp clatter. There's nothing to work through. You've already written the story. You've already decided who I am. Think about your fans, Luke, Richardson said desperately. Think about what they'll think if you just walk away. Bryan paused at the edge of the set and turned back one last time. My fans know who I am, Michael. They've known for 20 years. They don't need you to tell them whether my music is real. Richardson rose to his feet, his voice echoing as he made one last attempt. What about the evidence, Luke? The affidavits, the recordings, the contracts? Bryan shook his head. What about innocent until proven guilty? What about basic integrity? What about treating people with respect instead of ambushing them for ratings? This is journalism, Richardson insisted. This is how big stories get told. No, Bryan said coldly. This is exploitation. This is betrayal dressed up as truth. You took my trust and turned it into a spectacle. With that, Luke Bryan turned and walked off the Good Morning America set. The cameras kept rolling as Richardson sat back down, stunned into silence by the chaos he'd just unleashed. The studio was dead quiet. Crew members stood frozen. The country star had vanished, leaving behind the smoldering wreckage of the most explosive interview in the show's history. Across the nation, millions of viewers stared at their screens, unsure of what they'd just witnessed. Was this the righteous anger of an innocent man, or the panic of someone finally exposed? Either way, one thing was certain. Luke Bryan's meltdown on Good Morning America would become one of those rare television moments that the world wouldn't stop talking about for years to come.